Okay, hello everyone, and welcome for the um, last day of the Manila PTG for the Antelope cycle. So we've had a good and productive uh, PTG so far, and today is the last day where we will get there for discussions. So yeah, we'll have some good topics today, and the recordings for the other sessions will be available on YouTube. At this point, we have already the recordings available for the retrospective and the Wednesday and yeah, the Thursday one, which was yesterday, is about to be posted as well. So yeah, if you have missed one of the discussions and you would like to get back to that and take a look on what we talked about, please check the YouTube videos. So today we have a couple of topics to cover, and the first one of the day is oversubscription enhancements. So yeah, um, as usual, we have, or better, we had an Etherpad from the previous cycle, and there were some interactions about this topic during the Z cycle. So I think we can reuse the previous topic and add some further questions and some things to this. But yeah, Haixin, floor is yours. I see Haixin is unmuted, but I can't hear anything.
Oh, can you hear me? I'm sorry, my meeting room is broken just now.
Oh, I can hear you now.
Okay. Okay, let's start. This topic is come from a bug. There is about main two problem. First, let's to get to know about allocated capacity GB and the provisioned capacity GB. Allocated capacity GB is shares created by Manila, but provisioned capacity GB is allocated capacity GB and add the shared GB created merely over another Manila. So we can know that the provisional capacity GB may equal or greater than allocated capacity GB. Or some shares in the storage pool is management shares. On the provisional capacity GB, we can get from backend storage, but allocated capacity GB get from backend is not correct unless it's exclusive storage pool. So this is the problem one. Current the Manila will use the provisioned capacity GB from the value reported by share backend over to calculate its in in share in Manila scheduler. Uh, there is then there is the Palmer 2. If allocated capacity GB is reported by the storage backend in Manila, Manila in obstack A is considered to have um, uh, no we I will see. Please, the Palmer 2 is please turn to line 92. The Palmer 2 is 192. Yes. Here is the Palmer 2. Uh, Currently, we have multiple Manila scheduler in one system. About a scheduler service support HA, the consume from share function is executed each time a share is created or extended. In its function, allocated capacity GB and free capacity GB must be updated. Here we suppose 100 1 GB shares are created. 50 of which are executed in node 1. The node 1 is share scheduler. And 30 is on node 2, and 20 on node 3. Since allocated capacity GB is maintained in the memory of the scheduler service. As a result, the calculated capacity GB of the 3 scheduler nodes are inconsistent. This is a problem. We need to calibrate allocate capacity GB. This is there are the two problem. Here we have two there is high color. Can you open the spec? I read the proposed change in it. The proposed change is the solution about those two problems. We can turn to the line. Turn to the line 87. Yeah. Here is a maybe solution about this. About problem 1, allocated capacity GB reported by driver may be correct if the driver no as we just said, the allocated capacity GB reported by the driver may not correct. but we can calculate this value from database. Uh, it must be correct. So I think we we should use uh, we should use the value calculator from database first. It must because it must be right. We only read the value provisioned capacity GB from driver. This may be the solution about the problem one. About problem two, I think we should add a periodic task in Manila share to periodically correct allocation capacity GB statistics from database and record it in the memory. Not read, not record it in database. Currently, the allocated capacity GB is recorded in self pointer allocated capacity GB. This is a member of class share manager. So this value is this value is report from share manager. In share manager level, it will execute report driver schedule every 1 minute. Then the calculated capacity GB is in the share states first. So I think we can add a new predict task to collect the allocated capacity GB and report this value to scheduler. This is if there is multiple scheduler, this also work fine. Just the yeah. Data set calculate. That's all I want to say. My English speaking is a little poor. Hi. We can talk about this. Maybe we can we can implement this as you purpose and make later a curve of a province I'm looking for. Uh, here here is the code about this. There is the link is code. Fixing up drivers that are currently party. Fixing up the drivers that are currently party. In this line code, I have not to change the driver. There is a lot of driver. Only support only support allocate capacity GB. May the driver may not correct may not correct. When running the share service in HA, we will surely have inconsistencies. Perhaps we should have a way to sneak up allocated GB location when they are changed. When running I think because the project internal purpose because the purpose of 5 minutes multiple copies of same share service will be multiple copies of share or same share service will have a different venue. I don't think we will have a different venue of allocated capacity GB. Because any one of Manila share report reports the allocated capacity GB will go through rabbit MQ. The rabbit MQ is will report this value to all scheduler nodes. That means all nodes will get the same value at one report time. Then the next report time will update as a value to our scheduler. They should have a way to return. Perhaps we store the galaxy and time streams in a database. Perhaps. I think we no need to record in base. Currently, it is recorded in memory.
Yeah. I was missing the point where you basically said like I think we were trying to communicate on the spec, and I was totally missing that. Um, if you're trying to read the allocated capacity GB and storing it in the data in your own memory, and you're probably increasing it as new provisioning happens and decreasing it if you're deleting shares, etc. And then you're reporting it to the scheduler, right? So imagine even if you have multiple copies of this, you could be doing this reporting multiple times, once for each copy, except the scheduler is only going to look at the latest report. So whoever amongst the active services has reported the latest, that value is going to just be considered, and the rest of them are ignored. So yeah, um, I think we should just clarify this in the spec. So the second problem that I had is probably fine. Like it's not really a problem.
Yeah. My meeting room progress is tracking again.
Oh, no problem. Let me type that out too.
Maybe I should restart the meeting room. Wait a moment.
All right. While he comes back, I think one of the other things was, I mean, Haxin is right that some of these drivers are doing the wrong thing by reporting allocated capacity GB, and fixing them up would be, fixing them to report provision capacity GB instead of allocated capacity GB, because what they're trying to report is really provision capacity GB. And I think he's noted the drivers on his spec. That would be on line 65, 66. So we should probably open bugs against these drivers.
Yeah, that will do. I mean, and hopefully the maintainers will fix those, but yeah, let's see which ones. Inspur. Just chaotic. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, it's like 5 drivers, right? I think at least like 3 of this list is like they're easy to get the attention from the maintainers. So yeah, that makes it 60% of this list.
I'm back.
Sure. I think
Mm,
Gotham might be typing something.
No,
uh,
just testing something.
Oh,
But yeah, pretty cool. Yeah, thanks for the spec and thanks for the implementation as well. So I think I mean, the spec looks good to me. Like, there are some issues that will be left. Like, for example, the drivers have to be fixed up. Um, I think we should yeah, report bugs and treat them as separate issues. But yeah, it's a huge enhancement to our scheduler at the moment.
yes, yes, the driver need to fix the PI. Another question is for those numbers to be present in the present perception. Hmm? Currently, we only percent watch the driver. Only was the driver represents, and if the driver doesn't report the provision of his GB or his GB, those values are missing from. No, no. Uh, uh, if the driver doesn't report those doesn't report the both values, we consume the Manila exclusive the per. We calculate allocated capacity GB from database, and now we consider provision the capacity GB is equal to allocated capacity GB when driver does not report both value. Mm, okay, let me see.
And I can make this comment on the spec, and I can also
Mm,
test your code to see if, maybe this is already fixed because you are plumbing this into the driver's, update to the scheduler. So maybe this problem is gone. Like, at least allocated capacity GV is shown.
yes, this is uh this need to fix. So the boost value is gone.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, in in my patch about this, I have fixed this.
Okay.
Even the driver uh doesn't report the boost value. Uh, uh, it will calculate from database and then report it to scheduler. The per list must have uh, uh, must have allocated capacity GB and provisional capacity GB. In that patch, we'll fix this.
Okay. Is there something else you would like to discuss?
No, I have nothing to add.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, we are right in time for the next topic, I think. Yes. So yeah, we are right in time. We have Ada here, but first, thanks, Aixing, for bringing up this topic and for picking up this change. It's good, and we can continue to discuss the changes uh, in the change and itself, like in the spec and in the code itself. So yeah, it's good. Thanks for that, and thanks for clarifying some things over this call. So for next topic, we have FIPS. We have been talking about this for a couple of cycles now. I took the chance to create a neither bed for this PTG to share some updates. So yeah, it's been like 2 or 3 cycles now since we have started this effort from Manila. And first, let's recap a bit on what's FIPS. So FIPS, it's the Federal Information Processing Standards, and basically it's a set of standards to describe documenting and processing encryption algorithms and other information technology process for use within like non-military federal government agencies and by government contractors and vendors who work with these agencies. So yeah, you can enable the FIPS mode in a machine if you want to ensure that that system will comply with such conventions, and like if there is one application running that does not comply, then it would fail, and there would like be warnings about that, and that say that that library is using some sort of algorithm that's not that secure. So in a nutshell, the work for FIPS is about making sure that your product operates well when FIPS is enabled and in the operational system, and it follows the crypto guidance and uses certified crypto modules. So yeah, this is pretty much it. And we have Adi here with us, and he proposed a goal for FIPS. So FIPS is a goal. Oh, actually I found here. I got the wrong link, but oh, it's not proposed. It's accepted. Is that it? Selected. Yeah. Sorry, wrong link. I will replace here. But yeah, so it's a goal that was proposed, and it became OpenStack-wide goal. So other projects will be pursuing FIPS compliance and compatibility as well. So compatibility is basically ensuring that your software won't crash in a machine that has FIPS enabled. And compliance is basically like taking a look at all of the libraries you're using and importing to your code, and if there's something you can just you need to remove or ensure that it wouldn't have something that wouldn't be allowed under FIPS. So that's a difference between those, and there's some more information for this. And there are some completion criteria here, like for some examples for the Z cycle, and for the milestone 2, which is the AA cycle release, which we will get there. But there was a goal for projects to have the FIPS jobs merged, and or some level of encouragement. And the idea was that projects would add FIPS jobs to their code base, and then whenever we submitted new changes, we would test the code against FIPS using FIPS as well, and we would make sure that the code is not using something that they shouldn't be using. So the idea was that we would backport those jobs only up to Wallaby, and the other branches wouldn't receive a FIPS job as well. So there are lots of projects working on that. We have worked on that during the sorry, I got lost of it. But anyways, yeah, that was one of the goals. And yeah, we basically implemented all of those jobs, and we have managed to merge all of them. So we have jobs for FIPS now from Z up to Wallaby for master as well. And yeah, those jobs, they are the snowflakes from our CI, because they are the only jobs using CentOS 9, and all of our other jobs are using Ubuntu, because I mean, there wasn't a way when we implemented those jobs to have FIPS enabled on Ubuntu. Not that we couldn't have, but there wasn't a way to do it for free. So you would need to get a subscription or something like that, because it used to be kind of like a premium feature. So yeah, That's the thing. We might have updates for now, but that's something that I would ask Ade, because as this is something that impacts the entire community, we are basically, you know, the entire community would ask the Ubuntu images also to have like a way to enable FIPS. So all of the projects would be able to use FIPS as well. So there are some milestones for the cycle. For example, our pre-stack projects should have at least one job to test the functionality when FIPS is enabled, and this test should pass with limitations documented. This job should be in the check or gate as pipelines as a voting job. Run the relevant integrated Tempest tests in FIPS mode. These tests should pass. It's expected that some FIPS specific configuration may be required, or that some test features will be invalid under FIPS. And these configurations and limitations should be well documented. And FIPS compliant replacement for Paramico should be implemented as an option across the major OpenStack projects. See details under current issues below. So yeah, there are some current issues here, and we are also impacted by this Paramico thing. So yeah, it's a complicated thing. The entire, basically the entirety of projects using Paramico, we will also need to replace these, and that's also one goal. So we would need to take a look at what's the approach like chosen for replacing Paramico, and we will need to apply this year as well. So yeah, the thing for us is that we still didn't add the job for Manila UI, so we couldn't really have the tests running and passing for Manila and Python Manila client. We are using we implemented some jobs, and those jobs are using CentOS 9 for that. The the big thing for us while implementing the jobs and like getting those merged, we didn't face any like proper issues with FIPS. I mean, there were like one or two, but the big issues we had were related to CentOS. So yeah, on Python Manila client and Manila, we have those jobs merged, but Manila UI we don't yet. And you may ask why. It's because we wanted to ask to add the job to our the FIPS job being one of our integration jobs, and our integration job, I mean, it's failing constantly, even though like the issues could vary a bit, but they are failing constantly, and that wouldn't actually give us an idea. And I mean, I took the opportunity to take a look at like the things that occurred mostly like in Manila and Python Manila client, like the usages of MD5 or something like that, that we saw those caused problems, and Manila UI isn't. So there was some sort of audit for us in the Manila UI, but we don't have a job for that one, which is also one thing that we would like to do. But we still didn't, I mean, we could add a job, but it would possibly fail. And if it only fails due to the same issues we're seeing now, then it shouldn't be that big of a deal. But you know, because it would not be failing due to something related to FIPS, but that's one of the parts. And yeah, there's also something that was done for most of the projects. So there's some sort of code audit, and it is recommended that all the projects would audit their code and look for these libraries that are listed on the code audit, for example, here. So another thing like Ade created, which was this Etherpad, like saying what are some libraries that were being used across OpenStack, and I mean, it would be those would be like some things that would need to change, or there would be some issues with these libraries. So projects would need to uh, take a look at those and find replacements, and you know, get rid of those libraries, so it would be like FIPS compliant and so on. So in the initial audits I didn't find anything else in Manila other than like the things we already like removed or say that weren't being used for security. There are some third-party drivers using MD5, but not for security. So that gives like some sort of confidence for us on that too. But yeah, there are still some mentions to MD5 in the code, but not for Manila core. Manila core is fine. The thing is on the third-party drivers now that are like using that somehow, and we can just like we could take an approach if that starts preventing us from something in the future. We could just like open bugs against those and try to reach the third-party driver maintainers and get them to fix. Yeah, so that's this thing with the code audits. I already mentioned the usage or the Paramico and the plans of the community for replacement. So yeah, and one question we mentioned that we would like to bring up during this PTG was, when should we switch the FIPS job to voting? Because it's one of the goals for the Antelope cycle in the main selected goal that the jobs should be like made voting at some point. So that's kind of in our plans too, but we aren't pretty much like sure about when to do that. And the main reason is because, as I said, our FIPS job still like the snowflake of our CI. So yeah, um, I'll leave this question here, and I will let like people ask something or add if I forgot to say something. Feel free to add something here.
Cool. Thanks, Carlos. Yeah, it's a good summary of where we are. And you guys have done a great job in getting all of the FIPS jobs in. In fact, I think the Manila project is, one of the furthest along in getting all of the FIPS jobs in all of the repos. So that's awesome. As you've noted, the FIPS jobs are or have so far been a bit of a snowflake, simply because they're running on CentOS, whereas everything else, with the exception of O, everything else pretty much runs on Ubuntu. And the reason, as you mentioned, was that it was not possible to uh, Ubuntu essentially, Canonical essentially had FIPS as a subscription type thing, so something you'd have to pay for, and we had to try to figure out a way around that. Fortunately, we have managed to Canonical and us, and the foundation has managed to come up with a solution on being able to use Ubuntu in order to do FIPS. And basically, what that solution entails is a subscription that is provided to the foundation explicitly for the use of testing within FIPS. So the main thing, of course, was that because this is a public CI thing, anyone could potentially exfiltrate the secret corresponding to that particular subscription, and then go get some free Ubuntu subscription type of things. The but the understanding there, and they've worked something out so that if anyone basically does that and then makes a support call to Ubuntu, then to Canonical, they tell them to essentially go take a hike, because they're not the foundation testing FIPS, as it were. So that secret, this happened very recently. I think the emails and so on to finally get all of the things related to that, finally landed like last week. So this is sort of hot off the presses, as it were. And Jeremy Stanley has put together a patch to put the relevant secret in there. I can see if I can find a link to that patch, but essentially there will be a patch that there's a patch there that puts the appropriate secret there, which will change periodically, and so on. And I will be working with Jeremy and Clark probably over the next couple of weeks or so to put together a test job on Ubuntu using FIPS with FIPS enabled. Once we figure out how to do that, then I plan to communicate with all of the projects and let them know, hey, this is how you set up a FIPS job using Ubuntu. And then hopefully all you guys and all the other projects will be able to just take that and transparently, change things over there. Um, it's and there are a number of good reasons to go to Ubuntu. One of which is that unfortunately, a lot of projects haven't moved the FIPS jobs to to voting because CentOS has been somewhat unstable. CentOS 9 has been somewhat unstable. And so it's been difficult for folks to do that. But there are other good reasons to move things to Ubuntu, which is which includes, for example, being able to check to see whether or not a job is failing because of FIPS things or failing because of other things, right? So if you have a job that has tests that are failing in your on the FIPS job, and you have another corresponding job that is not FIPS enabled, and one is passing and one is failing, well, clearly it has something to do with FIPS and nothing else. Um, so that's a good thing. So that's what's coming up there. That said, all of the work that has been put in to try and get things working on CentOS is still very valuable, and it's still very valuable to have at least one CentOS job there. And the reason I say that is because FIPS is a bit of a moving target in the sense that you might have the spec that's available there, but then different OSs will have their crypto team go ahead and implement things so that you maintain FIPS compatibility. And so what we found as we've gone through this process with CentOS Stream is that part of the reason that things become less stable is that the crypto team, for example, will implement something that's a little stricter in FIPS and get closer and closer to the standard. And as they implement that, then things will break, and that in turn will break the FIPS tests and so on and so forth. And that's a good thing. That's a good breakage, because then we find the things that are there. And it may very well be that the crypto team that is working on the CentOS side and the RHEL side of things may be more aggressive and getting to these things than the Ubuntu side, or at least they'll be different. Which means that if you do have a CentOS job there and it runs periodically, then what happens is that you see the issues that will be coming up in FIPS, and you can get ahead of them beforehand. So, for example, recently, there was a breakage in triple O jobs and so on for MySQL under FIPS because the CentOS, the RHEL team, or the crypto team, decided to disable things like ciphers that use an RSA key exchange because that's disallowed under FIPS, and so that in turn caused MySQL under TLS everywhere to break, which in turn, caused things to break that way, right? So these are good things. These are good reasons to break, and the exact reason that we have the CI there. And so having a CentOS job there is a good thing because I think that you're going to catch a lot of issues ahead of time and faster, which is exactly what we want to do. So anyway, long story short, within a couple of weeks or so, I hope to have a Ubuntu job running with FIPS and a way to, right now the way we enable FIPS is I created an Ansible playbook that essentially turns FIPS on, and it only works right now for CentOS, but we will go ahead and update that so that it also works for Ubuntu and pulls in the appropriate secret and so on. And then all you would need to do is just include the appropriate playbook with whatever settings. I'll tell you exactly what to do there, and then you could be able to run your FIPS jobs there. Okay, so any questions about I guess about Ubuntu and that side of things? before I start talking about. So that's the compatibility side, and then I can talk about compliance next.
Uh, on the Ubuntu releases, technically, because we're, I mean, thanks first of all. It must have taken a lot to get them to give us some images to test with. Um, but it's pretty cool that we're getting close to that. So we are running jobs on all of the stable branches all the way back to Wallaby. So we would be using different images there compared to um, master and stuff. I mean, right now the same. They're focal fossa, but probably soon moving to Jammy, right? So are we getting like multiple releases of those images as well?
That I need to check. As I mentioned, this is all hot off the presses, so I don't exactly know what the implication is in terms of what releases and so on. I'm hoping that we're getting multiple releases, right, and that it's not just tied to one. Certainly, probably we would want to uh, have something that's running not just on the latest, right? Because there is not just on Jammy, for example, because there's going to be a period of time where we're going to be running things on Jammy, and there are going to be issues and so on and so forth. And it would be better not to be trying to diagnose Jammy issues and FIPS issues at the same time, right? It much better to have your stable jobs that are running with FIPS enabled, so that you find FIPS issues as opposed to Jammy issues, right? And then, of course, once Jammy is more, then we're going to have to do the same thing on FIPS as well too. I don't recall there being any sort of restriction as to the specific release of Ubuntu. So as far as I know, I don't think there is.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, you're right. I agree with you on the stable LTS thing because I mean, right now we know, for instance, that we don't have Ceph builds for Jammy. So that's a major blocker for us moving anything to Jammy.
Sure.
And there might be other issues as well. We've not finished testing it.
Right. Yep. So yeah, so hopefully it'll be multiple ones, but like I said, we found this, we managed to get all this finally figured out last week. So were it not for the PTG, we'd be working on it this week to try and get things going. So probably next week sometime. So the devils are always in the details, and we'll find out the details next week. So.
No, this is awesome news. Yeah, and as I feel that like it's getting close to officially have like the Ubuntu image, then I think that would be some time for us. Like as soon as we have that tested and we have our job like in a good state, like for example, we will propose a change to switch it from CentOS 9 to Ubuntu. So when we have that and we see that, okay, the job's passing, then we can just switch it to voting. That, I mean, we wouldn't have like the snowflake anymore in our CI. And I mean, even though it's pretty stable to see, like to take a look at the results for the CentOS 9, we saw some failures like due to fail to fetch some packages and some things like that, like some mirrors are down, and some things related to that. So there are some, like, mostly it's success, but there are still some failures, and usually failures are not that related to the change itself. So yeah, but it's good. This is definitely a good update. I mean, we have been waiting for this Ubuntu image for almost a year now, I would say. And it's
yeah, we've been waiting for a long time. So yeah, no, and as I mentioned, so I agree. I think the best solution is to have something that is in Ubuntu that helps you to get you into your stable there. As I mentioned, it might be a good idea to keep a CentOS one around as well too, just in say periodic or something like that. That way you will run into issues that you're going to run into because of different implementations on the crypto side, whether it be on RHEL versus Ubuntu. because I tend to believe that RHEL or RHEL CentOS is probably being more aggressive in terms of moving forward in FIPS, and whatever you see there will ultimately end up in the Ubuntu side as well too. So it's worth keeping a CentOS one around, maybe in the periodic queues or something like that.
Yep.
So cool. So on the compatibility side of things, there hasn't been as much progress there. One of the goals we had hoped to have for this last cycle was some sort of resolution as to what we wanted to do with Paramiko. You pointed out to the analysis I did before, just looking at all of the different different things that are used OpenStack, and if you go through that, you'll see that most of the things that are there are resolved in some way. We either know that they they are compliant, or we believe that we can remove the things that are not compliant, or the things that are not compliant are not really security related. And so the really big one that is there is Paramiko, and we had hoped to have some time to get a plan to replace those. Unfortunately, I have not had a chance to sort of follow up and do most of that, and it is unlikely that I'm going to have the capacity to be able to push that through. So we are looking for volunteers across the community that would be able to push this through as well too. And if we get such volunteers, I'll be happy to work with them and happy to help guide things forward there. But until then, it's just unfortunately it's not going to be one thing that I will be able to push through. So if there are volunteers within your guys' community or with across, and then I will be making a plea across OpenStack to see if there's anyone that's interested in working on this. I'm sure there must be someone who is interested in either fixing or replacing Paramiko. That would go there. Absent that, it's probably unlikely that we're going to find to achieve this goal in the short term, at least. So that's kind of the update on that.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, and the wide use doesn't make things like easier because it's not only like finding a replacement, like everybody must adhere as well. So yeah.
Yes. I mean, part of the reason we decided to make this community goal, and it was pushed to make this a community goal, is because we're going to have to need changes like a change to Paramiko, and we wanted to do it in a consistent way across OpenStack, so that everyone is using the same thing rather than 5 different projects using 5 different things. So yes, first it's a matter of finding a replacement, either fixing or finding a replacement, and working with with the crypto team and something, and working with me to do so, and then figuring out a consistent way of doing this across OpenStack. So great thing to do. I would love to do it. I just don't know. I know that I will not have the capacity to, at least over the next cycle, more likely than not. But I can work with someone for sure if someone is doing the work.
I have a question on this. So we've monkey patched that in Manila. So
Yep.
During runtime, it should be compliant, right? Like at this point.
So the monkey patching allows it to be not compliant but compatible, right? So it allows it to run under thing. But there, compliance has more to do than just being able to run. Compliance means that the crypto the crypto libraries that are used are certified in some way, or given the blessing of relevant crypto teams and so on to be in compliance with the way that NIST and the FIPS folks have said to use the crypto. So, for example, Paramiko itself has a lot of problems with respect to that. There's a lot of, there are a lot of libraries out there that might, that uses crypto, but what they do is they use the crypto in OpenSSL, for example. And OpenSSL is FIPS compliant, so therefore they're FIPS compliant because they're using the because they're not actually implementing the crypto, they're using the crypto in OpenSSL, right? And there needs to be an analysis there, because not only should they use the crypto in OpenSSL, but they should use it in the way that is consistent in the way that FIPS tells you that you should use it. Right? You should use use things in the appropriate way. And so what you would need is you would need someone from a crypto team to come through and take a look at a particular library and say, yes, this one is, they're not implementing new crypto, and they're using the crypto in the right way. Paramiko has a lot of problems with that. One, it implements its own crypto, which is, kind of a big red flag. So there's a lot of places where we may have to replace, the things where it's using its own crypto, and instead have it using OpenSSL or something like that instead. Two, when it does use OpenSSL, it doesn't necessarily use it in the right way. And three, it may be implementing crypto it does in fact implement some crypto that is not compliant with FIPS, in the sense that it's not accepted. The crypto is not accepted by FIPS, right? So there are multiple reasons why the crypto teams have said this Paramiko's bad for all of these possible reasons, and you should look for it. Either fix or look for a replacement thereby. So that's what compliance is about. Compliance is more that the crypto libraries and the implementation of the crypto that's in those libraries is sound and is in line with the FIPS recommendations.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like the last
So
couple of times,
I did want to mention. So the monkey patch that's there was for a relatively straightforward thing where Paramiko was using MD5, and MD5 in the context what it was using was not a security not a security context, and so what we had to do is we had to monkey patch it to annotate that particular use to say that it's not in a security context. Because what happens in a FIPS system is that if you try to do an MD5 using hashlib MD5, it's just going to fail, flat out fail. And what you can do, though, if it's in a non-security context, and we've done this within the Manila code, and we did this in the monkey patch for Paramiko, is you can actually annotate it to say that it's not a security context, and then you can move on, right? And so you had mentioned, Carlos, that there are a number of your third-party drivers which are using MD5s. And that's okay. You can, as long as you say, well, that's okay if it's a non-security context, you can still annotate it, but it still needs to be annotated, because if you don't annotate it, then it will just fail, right? So I don't know. You mentioned that they're not in a security context. I assume that means that we've identified that this is in fact the case, and that they're annotated now, and so now they're working, or maybe they need to be annotated before they're actually working. That wasn't clear to me.
Yeah, I think they still need to be annotated. We aren't running upstream CI tests with those, so that's why we aren't seeing failures there. But I bet if we were, we would possibly be seeing, because they're, I mean, even though we know it's not for security, it's actually calling, like, for example, MD5. And then we would need to annotate that, I mean, it's not used for security and so on. But yeah, we haven't seen failures because first, we aren't running tests like in upstream CI. with the third parties, and second, like the third parties would be the responsible ones for actually enabling FIPS in their environments and making sure that their driver would pass.
Okay. Yeah. So one of the things then that the Manila community might want to do is particularly for those third-party drivers, which we know of that are not annotated there, is to encourage them to do a test using using a FIPS enabled system and to do the relevant annotations so that their stuff will pass, right? I would say you would want to do that, but you want to do that once we have an Ubuntu based job so that it's easy for them to just turn on. You can just tell them how to turn on FIPS, and then they can do it and move forward from there.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, I got distracted a sec, but I had a question about that annotation stuff. So you're saying that right now there are stuff in third-party libraries that we're not catching, but wouldn't we be catching those in the unit test jobs that you were running, Carlos?
Yes,
I mean,
it's
it's possible they're not unit tested, but it's also possible that like you could look at the coverage and see whether that part is even covered.
Yeah, I ran unit tests in the past, but unit tests didn't catch any issues with those. So I would assume that those lines are not covered. But I can run those again and ensure that and take a look like at the coverage report and basically be sure that it isn't like, I mean, it isn't covered and so on.
If they are actually running and trying to do a hashlib MD5 on a FIPS enabled system, then that call and that system and that's not annotated. Annotated being specifically you add the special a special attribute that's there to say that it's a non-security context, then it will fail every time on a FIPS enabled system. So if it may be failing and the exception is being caught somewhere and we're reporting success, or it may just not be being executed at all if you're not seeing any issues.
Okay. Oh, I'll propose a new job. I'd like the merge change just to see like the results for us. Let me see here. Copy. Oh, Gotham sent a link to us. But yes, I will take a look at that.
So I'm just looking through that code list over here that was just sent out. And basically, you want to look for places where MD5 is called, hashlib MD5 is called without an annotation. A lot of references to MD5s, but not necessarily an actual call.
Yep. There's one
And
that
this is
calls us to
across
fail,
all of
which
OpenStack, right? So
yeah. Okay, so I took that action item for me to propose a new job and take a look at this again to see if we are suppressing errors or if like there's if those lines aren't covered. But yeah, I'll get back to that and talk about this again. Okay, are there other questions you would like to ask? Okay, I'll take silence as a no. We are some minutes over time, but yeah, the schedule today is good. So thank you very much, Ade, for joining us. It's great to have you here in this room and to talk about those things, and also to know like the great news about uh, Ubuntu. Yeah, those will be really helpful, and hopefully like in the cycle we will get the jobs running in Ubuntu and we will make them voting. Okay, I think that's all we had
Perfect.
for FIPS topic. So let's catch a 5 minutes break and then we can get back to discuss the metadata API updates with Ashley.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Okay, welcome back. We have the next topic now, which is the metadata API updates. We have Ashley here to talk us through those updates. So Ashley, floor is yours.
Hey everyone, thanks Carlos. Great. So a few cycles ago, I proposed some metadata API changes, or well, refactoring for some and a new metadata API for other resources. Previously, we have merged the shares metadata refactoring, including the admin-only metadata capabilities. And then in Z, we managed to merge the share snapshots API changes only. So for this cycle, the goal is to finish up review for the client and Tempest test patches. They're really close to being done, thanks to Carlos, Gotham, Laurent, everyone who's commented and reviewed on those patches. Thank you so much for that. I also I had expressed last PTG my interest in getting the share access rules and share export locations metadatas refactored, because they do have something up, but it requires a little work, especially for share export locations. It seems like that's a good resource to allow some user provided metadata for. So I'm thinking M1 is a good time for the share snapshots client and Tempest patch, and then hopefully by M3 I can get at least the API patches if previous cycles prove to be a trend. And then the reach goal would be to also get CLI changes alongside those API changes. And that's pretty much my update on this. It's short and sweet.
Yeah, thanks, and thank you for pushing all of those changes as well. Yeah, it's good to see the interactions, and indeed the Manila Tempest plugin and Python Manila client changes seem really close to be merged. So yeah, the idea is that we will the M1 really like sounds like a good milestone for us to merge those changes. So yeah, I'll be pinging some reviewers on those changes and getting back to the comments. I saw there were some interactions with Laurent too in the Manila Tempest plugin changes more recently. So yeah, thanks for resolving all of the comments and for posting the updates to the change. I think now it's only a matter of some more interactions there. So for share access rules and share export locations, yeah, those sound like really good action items to work. There are some patches that are work in progress, as you mentioned, and I mean, if they, I believe we could make them. If I mean, we can good cycle. We have a good cycle ahead of us, and we can continue with the reviews over the next months. So yeah, this is good. For share access rules, like I didn't see like which patches are up, but nor for like export locations. But is it too far? Is there like a client patch proposed already, and or
I do have like I have one patch up for each major repository, client, API, and Tempest. I was hitting some unit test failures and functional test failures with my previous VM. I haven't run them on the fresh one yet, but they are up. I can actually go ahead and put the topic branch if I didn't already. Let's just put that down here. Yeah, so that topic branch has all the patches related to this blueprint.
awesome, good stuff. Okay, are there other questions? Yeah, and I see the comment here. Maybe if maybe we do a collab review if we have time today.
Oh, that'd
Yeah.
be great. Yeah.
Have you met at the
And
hour?
yeah, and I approve of changing this to a release independent spec. I'll address that soon.
Thanks. Yeah, it took a lot, and you're right. Like, this was ready a little bit earlier in the cycle. I wish we'd just gotten to reviews earlier, because we did see some, last minute churn because we were doing reviews closer to M3 and beyond.
Mhm.
But hopefully with these changes, if these are ready earlier, like you have the timeline over there, I still don't like M3. M3 sucks for trying to plan anything.
Yeah.
We should try to get review attention sooner, as soon as they're ready, kinds. That would be my take on this. But on the access rule stuff, it's good to look at this like a code cleanup, because that's what it is, right? Users were able to make access rules, metadata changes, but export locations, this would be brand new APIs,
Yeah.
because those don't exist. And it turns out to be it is as interesting as the others that we've implemented, because there's use cases. We've discussed them in the past over here.
Mhm.
And that's kind of one of the motivations for this whole metadata spec. So excited to see some action on the export locations stuff. But then again, it feels like, we're doing this, like, if it feels like this is happening as a one person effort, let's try to spread the love. In case anyone's interested, sorts, yeah, I think you should seek out help. Because you've already finished the major part of restructuring code within Manila and making the APIs easier to implement. And these are now distinct parts, right? Each resource that you're talking about in the
Yeah.
spec is independent enough.
Yeah.
Um,
So each new resource simply needs, for the most part, a new database table for the metadata. The metadata there, I have abstracted the metadata methods, so it's just a matter of overriding the previous ones within their API files, and then
yeah,
hitting fixing any issues as they crop up in the unit tests, which is pretty much how I've been pursuing this.
exactly. So yeah, if there's anyone interested to work with you, I would absolutely encourage it, because we can basically learn how to write these APIs and maintain them together as a team. Because there are way too many resources for one person to just like keep tackling them release after release after release, right?
Yeah, we'd be up into the next alphabet.
Exactly. Yeah, that
Yeah,
would be
absolutely.
my feedback. So seek around, I guess, and I don't know if there's somebody on this call that's already gonna reach out to you. I wish there is.
Yeah, I think maybe I'll just make a note of it in the new and updated review pad when the time comes, and bring it up in the weekly, that if there's anyone who's interested in picking up an API, CLI, Tempest change, all in one resource, take it and own it, I'm more than happy to assist with that.
Great.
Yeah, awesome. This would be a good topic for an internship in the future as well, I think. I mean,
Yeah,
it's the
I
entire
think
flow,
so.
like a new feature or APIs, unit tests. That
Yeah.
it would be fun, I think. So yeah.
Yeah, maybe this can be a future outreachy or a college internship round project.
Yes, for sure.
Great, but great job, Ashley. Thanks.
Yeah, great job. It's great to see the changes up and all of those getting merged. I'm hoping we can close the remaining ones for share metadata early in the cycle. So yeah, it's good. Thanks for the efforts. Thanks for the changes. It's great.
Yeah, thanks for the reviews, guys.
No problem. Awesome. Is there something else we would like to add to this topic? I will take silence as a no. We were supposed to have like a 5 minutes break, but we just came from another break. I think there was like another topic here and I forgot to move around the break. So what do you think about like going to the next topic and we can catch like a longer break after the next topic? Yeah.
No, the next one's actually easy. So if you want, we could tackle it and then we can take a break after.
Okay, let's do that then. So it will be 5 minutes and then now it's 37. Let's put it 35 to 15 and then I will adjust because there is some time I think at the end. Okay, so yeah, Gotham, please, floor is yours.
Awesome, thank you. I wish Robert was here, but Victoria and I can probably take this today because Robert's traveling. And he did, convey that there aren't much, in terms of tangible, items that he'd like to talk about, like the previous sessions where he's showed here in this PTG and stuff. So let's run this down. At least these are the updates that I was able to put together from what happened between the last PTG and this one. We've had at least one Kubernetes major release, one major spec release, including I think on the 24th, that's next week. They're looking to freeze and release another version of the CSI spec. It's going to be 1.7. But if you're tracking backwards from close to 1.4, there aren't major changes that the CSI drivers have to be implementing. There's some optimizations and stuff and some clarifications on some of these features, some graduations of features, etc. And so if when a feature graduates in the CSI spec, for the most part, if the implementation does not change in the CSI driver, we just end up fixing something on the CI, enabling, as we upgrade the Kubernetes release, maybe we just remove a feature gate that had to be added because that feature was under beta or something like that. So those have been practically the kind of changes that have been happening in the cloud provider OpenStack repo for Manila CSI so far. Between the last PTG and now. And even in the new spec, I was taking a look, there isn't anything that we are missing. So we're good there as far as features and any breaking changes goes. The few improvements I think we've done have been in response to bugs that were reported. And I don't know if there's anything major to call out. Yeah, probably not much. Except I think one of the confusions we had recently was around FS groups and how we can support them with all the different kinds of backends that Manila supports. And there isn't much that the CSI driver can do on top of it, because we're basically provisioning storage from sort of like a multi-vendor situation, right? So you can think of it as different protocols, different coming from different storage systems and stuff, and we have not a clear way to enforce permissions at that level within the share, apart from saying, don't squash root. That's been the wide rule that we've had for our vendor implementations when they're creating data sets. But besides that, there isn't much that we're enforcing from Manila or from the CSI driver itself. There isn't a possibility for that. So we kind of clarified the support for FS group with both, I mean, by just making some changes to the Helm charts. So unless you know that you have a cooperative NFS server, you can possibly set FS group policy to none, because this is a multi-tenant solution, not intended where the client and the server are going to be in that sort of cooperation or be in the same ID mapping domain if it comes to NFS and so on. Or maybe you don't have these issues because you're using CephFS. But you'll be able to adjust that by just augmenting the CSI driver with whatever you want the CSI driver to do, especially if you're trying to use this for RWO volumes. That's one thing, and I think there was a similar fix in the operator on OpenShift, and that was alongside another fix that kind of took care of snapshots. We didn't realize for the longest time that snapshots were broken because we weren't running E2E tests, but now they're fixed. Forget they were broken, I guess. And on our end, I think one other thing that Victoria, I, and a few others are involved in is we are trying to run a perf scale test, different tests, and I think it's too premature to report anything from those. We're trying to run it with CephFS, NFS. That's of interest to us, kind of trying to see what are the limits based on the kind of architecture that we're putting together. And so we'll probably share results soon at a future PTG or a weekly meeting, or Manila weekly meeting, if it interests folks. And a couple of other things that we know are in the roadmap. I think just one at least is the volume expansion. It is GA in, I think, I forget the versions, but a few months ago, it went GA as far as the CSI spec and CSI drivers were concerned. So Manila CSI supports it, but we don't in OpenShift. That's because the operator does not set up certain things with respect to volume expansion. So that's next on the charts. But besides, like I said, the spec isn't changing much, which is the good thing. It's pretty stable, and for something that is as feature rich as Manila is, we should be able to take advantage of all the existing features without needing much changes in Manila itself. There may be a few changes here and there as the micro versions increase. We might have to adjust, go for cloud, because that's the integration point between the OpenStack APIs and the CSI drivers. But apart from that, there isn't much coming in terms of, hey, these are work items that the Manila team needs to worry about. There, I saved you quite some time. But that's me. Victoria, do you want to add anything?
Not too much, actually, Gotham. Thank you for the summary on the status. I guess that there is one small thing that we could add that is on our side, but basically is related to the bug on the long snapshot names, which basically it was
it was surfaced in the Manila CSI driver. I remember Robert reporting it, but this not only affects Manila CSI. Well, basically, I think we discussed this in the previous PTG, but I just got my hands on it and I submitted a fix. So yeah, another action item on our side is to check on that fix, get it merged and test it on the Manila CSI environment. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I saw that fix going in. That's nice. And Victoria was also at the KubeCon, and so she bumped into a lot of the people that maintain this stuff for us, including Robert. So thanks for representing us as well, Victoria.
Right, thank you. Yeah, it was Robert gave a really nice talk on the backups for Manila CSI environments. Basically, he shared some details about the environment they have at CERN and the different approaches in doing backups they made using different tools. It was an ongoing research they were doing. I think they don't have a selected solution yet. Perhaps that's something we need to ask to Robert. But it was quite interesting, and it's like well, day 2 operations for Manila CSI. So something I guess else that we can follow up with. The presentation is online. I'm going to add a link to that so you can take a look.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the updates and thank you for representing us at KubeCon as well. I mean, it's good to see this interaction and it's good to see that Robert is using and also spreading the CSI word. So yeah, it's good. You're going to say something, Gautam?
No, that's a good conclusion.
Awesome. Is there something else you would like to add to this topic? Someone like that would have a question or something? I'll take the silence as a no. So yeah, we can catch.
Let me
sorry.
just probably add, we've not asked a question on the OpenStack user survey, at least about the use of Manila CSI so far. But it is something that we're interested to know in case you are using it in your deployments. If you're an operator and you're using this in your deployments, to give us feedback, I guess. And I feel like I see feedback in terms of bug reports and issues that and feature requests that show up on cloud provider OpenStack. But if even if there is like, hey, we just use this and it's boring, it just works, right? So we just like to know. So feel free to chime one of us or just add your notes on this Etherpad or in the OpenStack Manila channel. That's pretty much it. Just a call out.
Great. Thank you for the call out. Yeah. Okay. Next is manual configuration of VLAN information, but I said we would have a break. So yeah, let's catch a 10 minutes break, I think, and then we can get back or better like at the top of the hour. So it's gonna be an 11 minutes break. So we'll be back at 15 UTC to talk about manual configuration of VLAN network information with Felipe. So okay, talk to you in 10 minutes then. All right, welcome back, everyone. So we have a couple more topics for today. The next one, it's from Felipe, which will talk to us about some things related to manual configuration of VLAN network information. So Felipe, floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Carlos. So I had this topic because we faced a problem during a customer setup OpenStack environment. So let's just provide an overview about the issue. Customer is trying to use the OpenStack with Manila, right? It's using OpenStack Charm, Manila NetApp backend with the multi-tenants, and they are using for the network Juniper Contrail network. So they have a neutron plugin that connects to this network. It's kind of network, and they are facing an issue while trying to run with multi-tenants. So multi-tenants requires network information, right, to set up the share server. And during this network information collection, the way that Contrail works doesn't fit very well on the Manila current Neutron plugin. So they firstly open a bug that I add to the line 282. They open a bug because the Neutron plugin was waiting for the VLAN ID. So it tries to get from the dictionary the value, but the plugin, the Contrail plugin, doesn't return that information. So I just provide a fixed substring. I think it's already merged. This fix just is getting from the dict using the get. So if it doesn't exist, it returns none. And as a result, since there is no VLAN on driver layer, it will set up the network as a flat network. And this solves the problem. So it can use the Manila, right? It can use the Manila. It can create share servers and create shares. The problem is multi-tenants because the customer wants the ability of segment on layer 2, right? And they want to provide each tenant as a VLAN, right? That's the segmentation that the customer wants. So with this solution, the customer needs to the solution that the customer found, the way that it's trying to do now, is just using standalone plugin, and the customer creates a backend, point to a cluster, and manual, because that's the problem. How Contrail gets the VLAN is not during the part allocation. So Contrail doesn't provide the VLAN ID during part allocation. So to get the VLAN, the customer before running the part allocation, it manually goes to the Contrail and gets a VLAN ID, and manually goes to the Manila conf, and using standalone plugin, it fixes the VLAN ID there, right? And fix the IP range. So it's not using the neutron. And so using this way, for each backend, the customer is using a VLAN ID. So if there's a tenant, it creates one backend. For another tenant, it creates another backend. All backends pointing to the same cluster. But each backend, since it's a new backend, it creates a new share server. And uses the VLAN that is passed as a configuration in the backend. So using this way, if the customer has a new tenant, it needs to create a new backend and restart the Manila for getting this new backend on the game. So that's the way that the customer is doing, and it's not very very productivity way, because it needs to restart every time. And also the way that the segmentation is done, the tenant separation, is by having one backend for tenant instead of all of them point to the same cluster. Instead of having just one backend and the Manila handles that idea of the JTS is true. We have one backend and Manila handles when it's a new tenant to create a new share server and provide the separation. So we have this solution. That's I add as a approach one. There's another solution that is create a new Manila plugin network that's specific for Contrail network. And what this plugin would do is, after it runs the port allocation neutron, it runs a new extra API call to the vendor network software. So it would be a Contrail API call requesting the VLAN ID. So it would be very similar to the neutron with a new extra step that would request for the Contrail VLAN ID. So this kind of solution is very vendor specific, and the problem is that we need someone to develop and someone to provide maintenance. I don't know if it's a community interested to develop this. It seems more like the Contrail Juniper company. It's more a business specific case for the Juniper, and I asked them, and they are not. They don't want to develop this. They don't want to work on this as a new plugin. They don't have a team to develop and to maintain this kind of code. And as NetApp, we are not very interested on maintaining this because we need a Juniper lab, a Contrail lab, and that's not something that we can spend much time. I don't know if there is community interest to develop this kind of plugin. I know that there's an open Contrail. I don't know how similar it is to the private Contrail that Juniper provides. It's as SDN, right? It's just SDN network. So I don't know if the community wants to develop this, but from what I understood is that there's no one that would spend time developing and maintaining this kind of code as a new plugin on the Manila tree. So we discard this solution and we go to the next. That's how the user is doing. So just the problem of this way is, as I said, not following Manila multi-tenancy design. It's not the way that the multi-tenancy works. Normally, just one backend point to a cluster, and okay, so creating new share networks, and the Manila would understand that it's a new tenant and creates a new share server for this new tenant and provide all separation. Only on Manila. There's no need to create new backends and restart the service. And the customer is complying that this way it needs to restart all time. That's a new tenant is added. So first question for this approach is it possible to add a new backend without restarting the service? I don't know if this is an open question. Normally we just restart the Manila and to read again the Manila conf, because it's cold conf, it's not hot. It doesn't read the Manila conf as we change the Manila conf, right? It's not running in a runtime. The Manila conf is not changed. So that's the first possible workaround that customer wants: the ability of adding new backends and just starting this new backend as a new service, right? And having the scheduler seeing this new backend and API as well, so can create a new share in this backend. Since it's a new backend, it will create a new share server for sure. So it will separate. And when the customer provide this new backend, it also adds this new VLAN for this backend. So it manually creates the VLAN on the Contrail network, because there is no interest to make the part of providing the VLAN ID on the Contrail as automatic. So the customer wants the Contrail advise them that the idea is to manually create the VLAN. So this part is manually, for sure, the create of VLAN for each tenant. There's no possibility to go to the neutral and change the, at least what I talked to the Contrail team, that they don't want to change the neutral, because the way that the Contrail design works, this step is done manually. But what we're trying to do is add the automation for the part of Manila, for the creation of new share server. So the VLAN would be done manually, but the Manila would be automatic. So we don't need to do two things manually. So the share server, the share server provision, that requires a bit of on-tap knowledge. We want to hide this from the customer, want to reuse the driver to create the share server and pass this VLAN is from away. So the first is this, the way of adding new backends for new tenants. And the second approach that came to my mind, that's I add this possibility, I don't know if it works very well, use specific multiple config option for setting the VLAN. I know that Oslo config supports multiple config option. Nova use this, right? But we don't have this on Manila. I saw that Manila has a patch that add this capability, because you can have this on log debug. So the Manila project has, we just need to change one line on the service, and the Manila has this patch a long time ago that changes. So we support multiple config option. We don't have any for any option, multiple config option. And at least from what I researched, I didn't find any. I don't know if anyone knows any option that is multiple. But the way that it works is just you change the Manila conf and send a SIG-hub signal to the service, and the server reloads that configuration. So using this, what I'm proposing is just having one backend as multi-tenant, right? And the user, we create a new option that it can be driver specific, since it's NetApp, it's a NetApp customer. We can add this just for NetApp backend. Although this is it's related to the Contrail, the way that Contrail works. So if you're using a new other storage, not NetApp, and this storage requires VLAN for segmentation, they will face the same issue, the same problem. So it could be a generic option, but if you agree that it's not the case, we can add this as NetApp specific option. But the idea of this option is that we can have like a list, right? And when there's a need of a new tenant, the operator creates a new share server. Sorry, the operator creates a new share network and goes to the Manila conf and manually creates the VLAN on Contrail and adds this VLAN to the Manila conf, to this multiple config, and creates a new share with this new share network. As a result, since it's a new share network, it ends up creating a new share server because there is no share server for this share network, and the process will collect the driver or the car code, depends if the option is car or NetApp specific, but the code would get this option that is multiple, see the last VLAN on the list, and okay, this is the last, so I know this is the newest VLAN, so I will use this as my VLAN. That would be the workflow. With this workflow, the user doesn't need to restart the service, the entire service, and the user has the ability for set up in multi-tenants with manual VLAN. That's the main problem. And I add here the workflow. If you see in the end, change the Manila conf, adding the new VLAN, send a SIG hub to the reload config, create a new share network, and call create share with this new share network. So change the code, we could have this this automation. I invite the operator that's using this environment in the beginning of the week. I think he cannot join. I don't know if he's here. I don't think so. I know that Vinod, he's here. He's from Charm. He's part of the solution. But yeah, it could be nice if you have the operator here, because this is what we are trying to do is provide a better way for him, to set up the environment with multi-tenants. But yeah,
I'll just like to add one thing. It's an operational challenge creating multiple backend per tenant. If the tenant grows, I mean, maybe we can do it for, 3, 4, 5, maybe 10. More than that, it'll be it'll be problematic from the control plane scalability and things like that. So plus every time you add the tenant, there needs to be a downtime, and it's going to impact, when you restart the services, is going to impact all the tenants. So all these operation challenges. Just wanted to add that. I think Philippe already covered that.
Thank you, Vinod. Yeah, that's the problem. Restarting would require restarting all tenants, all backends. And as I said, the other problem I saw this is not the way that multi-tenants design is. We shouldn't start adding backends for each tenant for drivers that support GHSS true. If the driver supports GHSS true, one backend point to a cluster, and the Manila can create new share servers using just this backend. Since you provide a new share network for this in the Manila, okay, it's a new share network, so I know it's a new tenant, and I would create a new one. There's other options that Manila can understand that is a new. It requires a new share server, but one of them is a new share network. And I think that's it from my side. I would like to know a bit about you guys. If you see what is the best approach, if you can follow, for sure, the operator's view would be nice, because he's the one that would use this. But yeah, I'd like to know a bit about your opinion.
Thanks, Felipe. And basically, my confusion here is, so Juniper at port creation time does not assign a VLAN, and so that is why we are not able to get that in the API requests that we are making, right?
That's a question. I'm not very expert on Juniper networks, but what I talked to them is basically what you said. It cannot get the VLAN during the port allocation. And there's no option. I request to them, okay, can you change the neutral plugin? For my understanding, it should be like, okay, you change the neutral plugin, the Contrail neutral plugin, to start doing this step. But it's not the common way. Okay, you can add a config or something like that you say, okay, I want you force to add this extra step, but they are not interested to work on this. So what I understood is that from Juniper side, there's no other option than manual create the VLAN. Vinod, do you have the same view?
That's right. It'll be a major, I'm not talking on behalf of Juniper here, but it'll be a major architecture changes. I mean, they'll have to rewrite and throw it away and rewrite the SDN. So it's a kind of like that. That's why we were even going the way, like creating a driver where we can make an API call to the virtual VPG, they call it, to get the ports. I mean, their concept of VLAN is very different from, the regular neutron. So, it seems like, in a nutshell,
Yeah.
very difficult for them to make this change.
So how is the operator even aware of these free VLANs and things like that? Is that something they're doing outside of Neutron?
Yeah, they're creating it beforehand using Contrail. So
Okay.
Contrail is an overlay network. It does not follow ML2 plugin. So it's one of those SDNs, right? So it does not die as in ML2 fashion. So it's a whole rip and replace kind of architecture. I'm speaking very high level here. No expert in that, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand like where the information is even living, if not in Neutron, and how does an operator even know, right? Like, are they accounting for free VLANs some other way? Maybe there is some other interface that's showing them, these are the usable ones, these are the non-usable ones on this particular network.
They're using the Contrail GUI to do that,
GUI,
configure that. Yep. It's not available through Horizon. I mean, there's a special Contrail GUI that it's visible to the operator.
So from what I can tell, the operator also cares about which ones to actually assign to each of these shared networks, right?
Right, because they create the port beforehand, and they put that in the configuration file. So it's already, they're doing this as a manual separate exercise.
Yeah. I mean, this certainly seems very snowflakey because I mean, the last time I think when we were trying to drive up a change like this, we needed, let's say, a top of the rack switch to bind a particular port, and it needed some hints, right? And those were binding profiles, and we were able to plug those in from Manila configuration. We would specify those binding profiles in the Neutron section, and so that's why we have like a new Neutron. We had to add a new Neutron plugin just to carry those into the payload while doing port creation and stuff. So I'm not sure. It would be. It feels very manual that an operator is forced to do this. It makes more sense that if there is something that Juniper needs, that we can send up through Neutron and not, directly talking to the Juniper GUI or something. It makes things a whole lot easier and automatic, right? You just configure it one time and boom, you're done. And it could be something like, hey, here's a bunch of VLANs that we know about that are free. Start allocating them for your for the networks that are coming into Manila and stuff. As opposed to each time I need to use a new network, I pick a VLAN, looking at the Juniper GUI, coming back to Manila and making sure it's there in the configuration so that the next time somebody creates a new network, that's the one that gets assigned and stuff. Part of the reason I also say that is because, tenants over here or projects are not really scoped into backends. There is no direct thing like you noted. And a project can create any number of shared networks. There is no limitation that they can only use one. And typically administrators don't create these shared networks for their projects or tenants. It's a self-service thing. And the self-service aspect is that aspect of being able to create ports, grab a new segmentation, and making sure that the ports are on that segment and configured on the storage system and stuff. So that's why this feels a little backwards, because otherwise.
Which one? Sorry, adding new backends, you mean?
No, the whole aspect of allowing VLAN configuration manually.
But you allow this today in Manila config file, right? I mean, they're doing it today, manual configuration. That's approach one. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're
standalone
using
plugin.
something known as a standalone plugin, where we believe, like, there's just one giant network and one VLAN. That's what they're doing, from what I understand, right, Felipe?
Yeah,
So they're not using Neutron in the picture at all.
no, it's not using the neutron. It's skipping the neutron because the neutron from Juniper cannot provide the VLAN.
Mhm.
From I as I said, I'm not very expert on Contrails plugin, but we talked to the Contrail team and they said that's not possible to do on neutron side. Something that you cannot
I
do on
think
neutron.
just to add to that, and again, not a Contrail expert, but knowing this, I mean, this is for last 5-10 years. It's a known architecture, right? The Contrail is a rip and replace. It's not ML2. In fact, ML2 plugin came later, and the SDN was before. So, and the Cisco ACI, for example, they have two options. They started with rip and replace, and then they have a ML2 version as well later.
Mhm.
So, yeah, with that, I mean, it's understandable that Contrail does not play nicely with Neutron, and the information is not there. It's just the architecture of it. Again, not defending Contrail here, but that's just a fact. Many SDNs are like that.
Are there others in this space? Like, do you know if any others are?
I know about Cisco ACI. That's how they had beforehand. There were many SDNs. Now they are consolidated. So,
Right.
and not very popular in OpenStack anyway. So, I know about Nuage. Same thing, I believe. But again, I have a dated knowledge of all these SDNs. But Juniper Contrail, that's what they do. It's not an ML2 plugin. It's a rip and replace, and that's how they work.
So on this approach to, let's say that's the way you want to go with this. How does this look like? Is this configuration option that you want to make mutable? By the way, I mean, on the mutable config options thing, yes, there are no other Manila options that have probably taken that route, but it has always been encouraged, because we've just not. Every time you introduce a new configuration option, you've got to really think. If you can write the code right, you can really make it mutable, and it's encouraged out of any kind of configuration option, as long as there isn't something you're writing into the database or something, and you can only do this at startup time and stuff like that. So as long as you think that a config option can be safely read from any part of the code, not just the init method or something like that, you're good. Don't store it into a variable. Just read it always from config files, and you'll be able to grab the take advantage of it being mutable. So that I don't know if that answers your question, Felipe. Because why you see no examples of it is because I think we're doing a bad job. Every time we introduce any config option, we're not asking ourselves that question. Could it just be mutable?
I got it.
Yeah. So, but continuing, I would like to see an example of how this config looks like. Like, is this a config option under the NetApp section, or is this going to be, a new backend that shows up that has a reference to a different standalone plugin, because now you have a new VLAN. How does this work?
Yeah, it's just a draft. It could be both.
Yeah.
It's just like an idea, and so we are just like thinking a possible solution, but it could be like a NetApp specific, backend specific, or it could be a new backend. What we are just here is just to understand if, okay, I have a problem. We can, the network integration cannot provide the VLAN, right? And we want to have the ability to provide multi-tenancy.
Yeah.
But we cannot collect this VLAN from Neutron. We cannot go away from this, because it depends on the network solution, and the network solution doesn't have the possibility to change. So we just skip this idea.
No, I understand the problem. No, the point I was trying to ask is the question I had was how will this look? How will the configuration look? Because so right now the customer is using standalone, right? The deployer. Presume they want to switch to using the Neutron plugin because it integrates with Juniper. The only problem that they have is that it's not giving us the VLAN. Correct. So they'll switch to using the Neutron plugin. So they'll just have one network section per backend. And that same backend is now probably has a new config option. Is that what's happening? Which has a bunch of VLANs, or maybe a VLAN range, or maybe a list that can keep growing over time. They just modify that and add a new VLAN. It's a comma separated value list or something like that. And the backend just knows, yeah, this VLAN showed up newly. So the next time a shared network comes and I have not seen it before, and it doesn't have a VLAN assigned to it, I use a VLAN that's there from my configuration file, and I'll make sure Manila knows about it so that it can store it in the backend section as well. And this time I mean the network backend section, backend info or something like that is what we call it in the database. I'm playing out the design so I understand, how hard it is for a deployer to know this, or how easy it is, if you want to call it that way. Is this what you're proposing? Yeah.
I'm trying to extract. Yeah, go ahead, Felipe.
Another idea that we could do is stick the VLAN with the share network. So the share network has a neutral net, a neutral subnet, and a VLAN. So when the user creates the share network, it informs what is the VLAN for that share network, right?
Yep.
And the user when creates this, because what we want to do is provide a way. The VLAN is manual, definitely it's manual. It would be great manually, but we want to have the ability to pass this information to the driver when a new tenant is requested. So we need a way of providing a VLAN that I create manually to the driver. And the idea could be multiple config options. So a list, as you said. So I see a new one and okay, I change the list and I need a new shared server. So I get the last from the list. So the user, what is the manual step of the user? Create the VLAN. There's no option for this, so it's manual. And another step of this is change the Manila conf, right? I know the best scenario would be all segmentation is automatic, but there's no way. So the manual is part of the work. The operator has to play with the manual. So we want to have the best way of make a workaround that gives a bit of automation for this, but yeah, keeping with there's no way of go away from the manual. My idea was to use the Manila conf, but we could add this to the share network. I don't know what is the side effects of this. We need to think a bit. We can discuss if adding a VLAN for the share network subnet, not to the share network. We can add to the share network subnet, which is actual the resource of the share network. The share network subnet has a VLAN. So what we do is from the neutral net, we get the port location and it returns the IP. And the VLAN we collect from the share network subnet. That's its own Manila database. So all time that the subnet is reused, it uses the same VLAN, right? And the operators should create the share network saying, okay, this share network subnet refers this VLAN, this segmentation, this tenant. That's another possible solution. I'm just
Yeah, no, I was going to ask you that because that's kind of what I was thinking of when you were going through these configuration things, right? Like it sounds like I was going to ask you, at what stage do they know that they have this VLAN? If they know it before creating the share network, then that's fine. Like you can create the share network with some additional data that will act as an override to whatever it is that Neutron is telling us or not telling us, right? So if Neutron's just saying your VLAN is none, it is null. It doesn't return this thing. We look into the share network's metadata and say, okay, the VLAN was provided on the share network. We just augment it, and then we just know it, right? At that point, it's a VLAN network. We just didn't have that information from Neutron, but the user gave it to us, and we just end up using it.
From what I got from the control team, what you need to set up a VLAN for a tenant, you need like a tenant project ID. So you say, okay, I have a tenant and I want a VLAN. So you can create your VLAN previously of creating this share server. Okay, you can go say, okay, this is my project. I have this project, I have this tenant, and I go to the control GUI and say, create a, I don't know how it is, but you go to the interface and say, creates a VLAN for this tenant, this project ID. It creates the VLAN. So you can have the VLAN before you create the share network, from my understanding. Otherwise, there's no option for
right.
this. If you need after, you should do this during the process. So you should request to the control after you create the port. If you need to get the VLAN after you create the port, it means that you must create a new plugin, because the port creation is done during the plugin. So if the VLAN is collected after the port creation, we need to, for sure, change the plugin for requesting this VLAN to the control, right? There is no way of, so from my understanding, the only option is to create the VLAN before setting the share network. Because the opposite means that, okay, the plugin is the only solution. And we know that there's no this option of creating a new plugin. This new plugin, what I mean is about new plugin is, this plugin would request, request a control API. So it means that there's a request for a specific way of, like, I know it's REST, whatever it is, but it must request to the control software, right? So it's specific to the control, and there's no way of doing this because it requires testing, it's requiring maintaining in Juniper. That wants the control network. They are not interested on this solution. So, right, since that, I think I don't know if I answered your question about if it's.
I think you did.
Before or after.
I mean, basically, you're wondering that too. I suggest we guys go back and ask the deployer. Is that what makes sense, right? So if you know the VLAN before you create the share network, then it makes it easier. We just put it in the share network, and for that we would need to modify the share network API. Is that something they're okay doing? Like, is that, I mean, I don't know what release they're on, and if they're okay, for us to wait to ship this enhancement with an API change.
That's another problem that we have. They are not using the latest version. They are using Charm. Which version of it? It's I don't really. No, I don't remember, but it's an old release, and I don't know how.
It's the old LTS release,
Okay.
2004.
And what version of Manila is that on 2004?
I don't exactly know, but I can find out. Sorry.
Okay.
I remember.
I mean, the vanilla version that comes with it, obviously. So OpenStack deployed is 20. It's deployed on the 2004 version, which is Queens, I believe. Yeah.
I think I don't know if I understand Corey's emails
Yoga, it
properly.
seems.
Oh, is it? Okay. Yeah,
It
when
seems
the
so.
Ubuntu folks write their emails to the mailing list, they kind of say, hey, we support multiple versions of OpenStack, right, on each LTS release. So I think you get to pick, but you're right, like it could be whatever is the default is probably what they're using. Because I see, for
Yes.
example, yeah, is that what's going on?
Yes, I mean, we're using the LTS version, and
Okay.
I don't have it offhand, but I can confirm.
So apparently on 2004, you can use Xena, you can use Yoga, you can use Victoria, you can use Wallaby. So you have multiple options to pick, and Usuri is the default apparently.
Usuri, we are using
Yeah.
Usuri.
I
We're
see.
using the default, correct?
Okay. And I'm reading that here. Okay, so I mean, Felipe, what do you think, like in terms of making an API change? I feel like this is more long-term and it's more generic. It need not just be Contrail, right? Any kind of network plugin that's not really giving us the segmentation IDs, and I forget what else. I think it was there were a couple of other things, or at least just one thing that you added in your patch recently.
Sorry, I didn't get cut. Could you?
I'm looking at your. I'm looking for your patch right now. Just give me a
Okay,
second.
that merged. I
Yeah.
have this. Do you want the patch?
Thank you. That would be helpful.
I have the patch here. Just a sec. Here. I send on this chat.
Thanks.
Chat here. That's the patch. Oh, I sent directly.
I think that was it.
No,
Oh, there's a different one. Okay, thanks.
That's you. You request the patch that I solved the issue?
Yeah, I did. That one is the 353 at the end. I think that's the one you're talking about here.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, a couple of things that are missing from actually a few things. We're not getting the network type. We're not getting the segmentation ID. We're not getting MTU. From what I can tell. Just looking at this patch, correct?
Yeah. MTU is also can be also important.
Yeah. I mean, otherwise,
Yep.
yeah. So, and all of this information is currently being fed by config options.
Yeah.
Right now. Okay.
Config options. Exactly. You get it. And when you're using Neutron, it's when you're using standalone. When you're using Neutron, the shared network object already has this, right? You know that on database they have this information on the port. I think the port allocation shared network. But we have the MTU but when you allocate one, there is an object, there is a new database, there is a new table that's allocation, shared network allocation, something like that. And this has the MTU and the IP, right? And we fill this value from Neutron or from standalone.
Okay.
But we could,
sorry, go ahead.
and we could fill this using the directly from the shared network.
Yeah, that would be my suggestion as well. Like, let's try to build this generically, and in the most, I mean, user-friendly way we can afford, right? Because it feels a little wacky if you're saying an operator can set this data in the config file and make it available for an end user. That feels very weird, because each time you have a new project, you got to end up changing the config files, and it doesn't matter. I think whether I understand restarting services is worse than reloading services, but either case, you're making a service change, which feels backwards when we could do this via APIs. And if you have that information already, that is, you probably have the network type, you have the segmentation ID, you have the MTU. Just let us know with the share network, and we'll be able to use those values rather than what we get from Neutron. And that makes it generic enough that it can be Contrail, it can be Nuage, it can be anything that doesn't give us these values, and we'd still be okay.
Yeah, that's my goal here, to try to make it more generic as possible, to fit on the community desire, right? To not be very specific to this case, but to fix this case and also be generic for using in another situation. Okay,
Yeah.
I think so. What you said is that the approach 3 would be the best one for solve this issue, and
Yeah, that's my opinion, and it lines up with the stuff that we just spoke about in the last session as well, metadata. We don't need to keep adding things to the network API. We could just make these metadata items, and you can add logic if you don't want these metadata items to be modified and all that stuff. But they can create it as they would create a regular share network, and just make these metadata so that you can keep growing this list in case there's something else needed in the future.
so your idea is adding as a metadata to the share network subnet, right?
Yeah,
not for
to
the share network.
subnets. Yep,
Yep.
to the share network subnets.
Okay, that works. I think it needs a spec, right? You need to write a spec for this, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Ashley's covered the metadata interactions in her spec, but yeah, it doesn't hurt. I think if you want to just call out what it is that's changing, and if it turns out to be too big, feel free to add a spec for it. But I'm not sure. I mean, if it's a straightforward change that you're just adding metadata APIs and you're keeping the metadata items, some of these metadata items are special to you, right? Right now, you need network type, segmentation ID, MTU. And other metadata items are not special. You don't care about those. That doesn't seem like it needs a spec specifically to me.
So
We can-
is this an API extension or brand new API?
It'll be brand new APIs. So it is bad news for the customer that they'll have to upgrade to get this goodness. It will not be back portable. And
Oh, I see.
so that's going to be the the downside of this. But upside is it's definitely way more maintainable.
Yeah, I understand that. So there is no API to attach a metadata today for Manila?
To these share network subnets, no.
Oh, specifically to the shared network subnet. Okay, I see.
we have metadata for share right now, right?
Yeah, shares and snapshots.
But this is on the latest version on Z on, yeah. So
Yes.
even on the Ushuri way, yeah, that the customer is running now, there is no metadata at all.
No,
Right.
there is metadata for shares. There's always been metadata for shares for a long time. I mean, if it is something that they would like to consume, I mean, it's not something we would do, but theoretically, you can just plumb this even through share metadata and grab those values, because I guess we're not sending the share object up here, but we know the share object by then, correct?
Okay, so just
If they want to solve it for themselves. I'm not saying we're going to do that.
yeah,
Or we have to.
but my idea is that this approach 3 has the downside that's a new API, so it's not back portable, and it's
Yep.
just on the latest version that will come.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
if the user just runs with old version, I think the best solution for him would to, that's came to my mind now. Okay, so I'm just trying to put in words. The idea would be to the metadata already exists on his environment, so he could add to the share metadata the VLAN. And I'm not saying, oh, that's that solution on the upstream, that's generic, and I'm saying that, okay, the customer has a problem and we can solve locally his problem.
Yeah,
and
they could
add to the metadata, and we change the driver for getting the VLAN from shared metadata. So if you want a solution that is on Shuri, it must be custom, right? It must be done only on the user. And this is important, you know. If you want to provide a solution to the customer on the Shuri version, we can work on a customized version. So it means that we want to do like that. That's one idea that I came to my mind, but we should like provide a patch that is not for sure backportable, because it's not a bug. But
yeah,
we can,
let's talk through those details. I think just between you and
yeah, it's
you and
open
I.
source. Yeah, exactly.
And but I think I get it. I get it what we're talking about here. Okay, all right.
So for the community view, what we can do for this is work on the port tree, add as a metadata. I think that's the conclusion. We work on the metadata for adding this as a VLAN, and that's done. And but it requires the user being on the latest version.
And that's approach 3, like adding a API to add metadata to the shared networks, right?
Yeah, that's on the
That's what it
upstream.
is.
If you want work on an upstream solution, and we add this metadata. The metadata spec already exists, right? What as gotten said, and it's just about implementing this for this object, the shared network subnet that we don't have yet. But yeah, I think Ashley already did this before, so we know how to do this, and should not be very newer. And yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that's it from my side, guys. I don't have any new points. If you do have any questions, anyone here, be free to ask. But I think from my side, it was a great discussion. Thank you, God, and thank you all, Carlos and everyone. I think we got good points during this session. But yeah, that's it from my side.
No, thank you. That was good discussion. And sorry, I was proxying for, the customer as well as I wish we had the customer here, but that's fine. We can communicate. But thank you for this.
No problem. Thanks
Great.
for bringing the concern and for walking us through this issue. It is a confusing one, and thanks for tackling it.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for joining us, and thanks for the good discussion. Right. So
Thanks
we
again.
are. Yep. Okay, we are a couple of minutes late on the schedule, so and we still have like one topic to cover. So yeah, I'm okay with staying a little longer. That will push our happy hour for like a few minutes after. But yeah, I'm
That's
okay.
an evil
This
plan
next topic
when you have my topic at the very end, and you're like, it's okay if he pushes the thing into happy hour. It's like, just kidding. But no, I should be quick with this, Carlos. So I guess it's just going to be something we'll brainstorm. So we'll see if we can try to finish it before happy hour. 5 minutes.
Awesome, thanks. No, I mean, yeah, you can take the time. I mean, I don't wanna make like you be in a hurry. So yeah, please take your time. And then happy hour will be here still. It will be happy hour, So yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay, cool. So folks, okay, let's start then. So better use of our bug status. Now that we have bug grooming in a great place, much better than it was. I was just thinking about the next problem that we can end up solving, which is that, when we were putting these numbers together for the retrospective, one of the things that stood out is 55 new bugs. What does new really mean? Did it show up right now? Like, in the last week, in the last month, in the last few months, etc. It turns out it's not. Uh, you could have a really old bug that's considered a new bug because we've not triaged it. That's what it is. Um, and Vida can correct me if I'm wrong. So technically, I think you're using custom queries to actually get to the really new bugs, right? We're not really looking at the new indicating a new bug.
Yeah, correct. I slice and dice all the data and then come up with a new. Yeah,
New,
right.
the real new.
The real new, which
Okay.
is what I call is like incoming for that week.
Incoming. Yeah. So that makes sense. So right now, I think we're keeping a lot of the bugs as new if we are not looking at them, which is kind of what prompted, what do we do? Can we start assigning different statuses and stuff and making things better? So Launchpad has a write-up on what those statuses mean. So one of them that we're not yet using is confirmed. And I think I see stray uses of it like a few times. I've seen people confirm the bug, and that I think is good practice if we want to adopt it. And what that means is somebody else apart from the bug reporter has seen the bug, has looked at the reproduction steps and said, okay, this is a bug. I confirmed that this is a bug. And it confirms to our plans at some point. It'll show up in our plans to fix it. It doesn't mean that it's been planned yet. The next status that I've seen used is triaged, and it has happened even on other Manila bugs. It is that we have a plan. We have everything we need from the bug reporter, and we are going to look at solving this. We don't have a plan in terms of when and where and who will do it. That's what the other fields are for, the assignee and the milestone target. And yeah, so let's probably walk through this question first. And the other one that I had was the second part, which is that some bugs are languishing in some states for too long. So let's first think of how we can tackle the new bugs and actually make new the incoming bugs.
Yeah, I like the idea of putting those in confirmed. But I mean, we usually will get to the bugs when we get, like, for example, we are in a Manila meeting and we see a new bug coming up, and then we will say we'll have Vida bringing up the bug now as it currently is, and we would take a look at the bug and try to triage it. So like 95% of the times we would end up with the bug already triaged. Like we would say, okay, this is a good milestone, this is the assignee, and this is the priority of this bug. So we would come up with everything like that. So yeah, the only case I can see, like in the thinking in a practical way and what we currently do and the scenarios we have been through lately, I would say like confirmed bugs would be like 5%, and the other ones, like where we already have an assignee and all of the other things, the bugs would end up in the triage state, even though like sometimes they won't get done by the milestone we talked about and we decided during that time. I think yeah, but I think those would be moved to triaged or even confirmed. So I like the idea of using confirmed instead of new, because that would give us the real sense of like, okay, this is a new bug, this is coming now, and we need to address this. Yeah, so at least for me, it's a goal on using confirmed instead of new, and we can start doing that. I think from now on, because that will give like the clear view of this, of what's new and what's already confirmed, and what's like what we have a plan to work, and we will be bringing it up in the next couple of releases on next couple of milestones.
Yeah, and if during that triage meeting, like during the bug meeting, during the weekly meeting where we bring up bugs, and if we're not able to triage it entirely, we're not able to confirm something, we just leave it as new. But we have somebody that's asking questions, and the reporter is probably giving us more answers, right? That's the only reason why we're leaving something at new, and that's intentional. It is still a new bug that is not yet confirmed, not yet triaged, not yet, in progress, any other state. But
Yep.
I kind of think I mean, look at the numbers, right? 55, 17, and 5. That's huge numbers of new bugs. So which means maybe if we can comb through these in a special session, maybe we just have a meeting, and just, or maybe divide this work into people and just say, let's just confirm these bugs,
Yeah.
and all 55 will just disappear because we've either confirmed them or we've done something with them.
Yeah. Makes sense. Then we can get like sometimes to that. Hopefully we'll have like someone volunteering or someone accepting the the invitation to become like a bug czar, and we could do that during
Yeah.
the switch. Yeah, like when we switch the roles. But if not that, I don't. It like 55 bugs sounds like a bit painful to go through. Like if we are like only one person, so we could divide that. That's for
Yeah.
sure. Even like before a bug squash or something.
Sure.
Yes.
And it could be one-off meetings that we do, like, just to get on a call and discuss something,
Yeah.
or just do this in the Manila channel, right? And like a bug hour, and we are just doing IRC chats and trying
Yeah.
to, get these out of that state. Um, yeah, let's probably plan on doing that, I think.
Yep.
Well, how about the bug owners? Because usually this is something that the bug owner determines and changes
Yeah.
the state of the bug, right? So how about if we, advise the bug owners to go through their own bugs and change the status based on what phase it is and update it, and then any of the bugs that are not assigned and they're open, then maybe as a team we can divvy up and look at them. But it seems to me this is a status that the bug owner is
Can
best
do.
to determine. Yeah, but then we
Yeah, I
can
like
just
that idea.
take the rest of it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Let's do that, I guess. Yeah, let's probably bring that up then at the next meeting and say, I mean, we have a way to just look at that list and show that list.
Yeah.
So 55 bugs will show up, and probably half of them are mine. I don't know. But you just take your own bugs and just say, you're confirming them because you're not the reporter, but you're the assignee, and you've looked at it and you're planning to work on it, but you add that confirmed status. You're right.
Yeah.
That make it easier.
And any
Yeah.
unassigned bugs, then we can, then maybe the team can take care of it or review it in one meeting or whatnot,
Agreed.
divvy it up.
Agree. Good idea.
Awesome.
Thanks.
I'm actually 4 minutes over, but I did want to talk about the next one too. Let's do this at a weekly meeting. That's what we can do.
No, that's cool. All right. So now let's. Okay, so I think that wraps up our topics for this week. Yeah, it was a good PTG week, pretty productive. So that wraps up all of the topics we had. It was great. All of we recorded all of it, so there's the possibility to check it out and to see what are the key decision points we took and some of the things we discussed about. So yeah, thank you all for attending. It's really good to have this kind of interaction with the community and to talk about all things Manila during this week. So yeah, thank you very much for the topics, for the interactions and everything. we will have our some time for happy hour right after this, but yeah, let's wrap up here the PTG week and we can continue to happy hour. Okay, so thank you very much for joining, and see you around like on RC or the OpenStack Discuss mailing list.